Good morning, half a day. The Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing is now called to order. For the record, today is Tuesday, April 19. The time now is 9:01. Notice for this budget hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. First public notice was issued on April 11th. Second was on April 15th, and reminder, today's April 19. It's 9:01. The committee will now hear Bill 276-36 COR from the Committee on Rules by request of the I Maga'hågan Guåhan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam. An act making appropriation for the operation of the executive branch of the Government of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2023, making other appropriations and establishing miscellaneous and administrative provisions relative to the Guam Community College. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues that have joined me this morning. We have the Oversight Chair of Guam Community College, Senator Amanda Shelton, and we have Senator Tello Taitigui. The general rules for this public hearing. Those testifying on Bill 276-36 COR relative to the Guam Community College are invited to the panel, and they are Dr. Okada, Mayor Okada, Mr. Carlo Leon Guerrero, Rodelyn Giraldo, right? I hope I didn't murder your last name, okay? And Virginia Tadella. Thank you for being here. Written testimonies shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimonies may be read, and written testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes, but we're here for Guam Community College, so you got the morning. You got our attention for this morning. Those testifying will be allowed to present oral testimony. Once you're done, please remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by members of the committee. Question and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda, which is the Guam Community College's budget. Personal inference of the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of the general rule of conduct will result in removal from the public hearing. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and will be removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Other questions may be submitted to the committee for submission to the agency or department for responses. Please state your name and your title for the record. At this time, I ask the panel members to please rise and so that the Sergeant Arms may swear you in for your testimony. Sergeant Arms?
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information that you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Mr. Chair, you're under oath. You may proceed.
Thank you, Sergeant Arms. Dr. Okada, we're here to begin the discussion on your budget for the Guam Community College. Please.
Chair, I will yield to the chair so that he can begin.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Carlo Leon Guerrero. I'm the Vice Chairman for the GCC Board of Trustees. Unfortunately, our Chair, Frank Ariola, was unable to attend this morning, so on his behalf, I will go ahead and present his testimony. Good morning, Chairman San Agustin and members of the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing. My name is Frank P. Ariola, and I am the Chairman of the Guam Community College Board of Trustees. Thank you for allowing us to come before you to testify on behalf of the students, faculty, and staff regarding GCC's funding requirements for fiscal year 2023. To start, I am proud to announce, for the record, that GCC has received a clean audit for the 21st consecutive year. And I want to congratulate Dr. Mary Okada and the GCC team for continuing to work at such a high level of excellence and accountability. I also want to note that there is no better way to begin a budget hearing than that. As we move past the most critical issues of the COVID-19 pandemic and the island returns to some level of normalcy, GCC still has a sense of urgency to restore our friends and neighbors to full employment. Last year, in response to the needs in key industries, GCC rapidly pivoted our programs to provide work-ready boot camps for critical areas in healthcare, construction, maritime ship repair, IT, truck driving, heavy equipment operators, diesel mechanics, HVAC, and bus driving. Occupations that form the backbone of our island's economy. We are very proud of the work we have done and the impact GCC has made on our island. We are especially grateful that our hard work and passionate commitment to our island has won national recognition. This past fall, GCC was awarded as first runner-up in the U.S. Department of Education's Rethink Adult Ed contest for our work-ready boot camp programs. Our program was chosen from 203 entries from 31 states, Washington, D.C., and Guam, and is now held up as a model for effective workforce training, and for good reason. From 345 total participants, 292 completed the programs and were offered employment. That is an 85% completion rate. While I believe Guam Community College is doing tremendous work, there is still so much more to do. As our island opens up, there is greater urgency to retain and upskill our people for the jobs that are here today and for the jobs that will be opening in the very near future when tourism recovers and Camp Blas is completed. We are doing our part, expanding programs, modernizing our campus, and we are certainly appreciative of the support we have gotten from you, Mr. Chairman, and all the senators. As we confront the issues of today and plan for the work of tomorrow, we also need to look further into the future and begin expanding our technology. We are focused on building our hybrid engine repair program and are beginning to explore electric car technology. We must start looking to develop programs that use immersive technologies. Augmented reality, AR, and virtual reality, VR, as well as mixed reality, MR, technologies are already playing a role in learning and training in many of the industries we support. The Guam Community College fiscal year 2023 budget request is $333,285. This represents a 5.8% increase over the FY22 appropriation level. GCC is working furiously to stand up training and education programs to train and upskill Guam's workforce, which has been adversely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The budget request will support the programs above and allow us to continue innovating and collaborating with our community partners to strengthen Guam's workforce. Given all that I have mentioned, I am confident that this budget request of $21,333,285 is sufficient to move the college forward, while simultaneously being fiscally responsible and conservative. I thank you for the opportunity to appear before this committee this morning and testify in favor of FY 2023 budget request for Guam Community College. Sincerely, Frank P. Areola, Chairman, Guam Community College Board of Trustees.
Thank you. Dr. Okada?
Buenas mañanas y todos. Senator San Agustin, our Oversight Chairwoman, Senator Amanda Shelton, Senator Tony Atta, Senator Tello Taitagui, and Senator Joanne Brown, and members of the 36th Guam legislature that may be attending virtually. Today, I am elated to come before this august body to advocate for the Guam Community College's fiscal year 2023 budget submission. As a leader in career and technical workforce development, providing the highest quality student-centered education and job training for Micronesia, the college confirms its commitment to providing educational opportunities for our island residents. As we celebrate the 45th year of GCC, we can affirm that we have lived up to our mission and have contributed to our island's success. Sidus Ma'asi to all of you that have stood by GCC throughout the years and your commitment and continued support. Before I begin my testimony, I would like to take this time to boast. Boast for excellence and financial accountability. You know, not too often do we hear of financial success but I have had the honor of hearing this for 21 consecutive years. So hats off to the fine folks at GCC for financial stewardship, accountability, and continued success. This is a moment to celebrate. Today I come before you to request for GCC's fiscal year 2023 budget in the amount of $21,333,285. This budget is approximately $1.2 million more than the fiscal year 22 budget that we were allocated. Let me provide an overview of what this increase includes. First, the cost for personnel, inclusive of benefits, has increased due to the anticipated retirement benefits and health insurance cost increased in fiscal year 22. The new budget formula for retirement this year has increased another 1.23%. GCC is also doing its part in trying to keep our expenses down with a switch over to a much more efficient telephone system and updates to our college copier services. The college anticipates some savings. Our energy efficiencies have provided savings on utilities despite the increase in rates. To monitor our usage, the college is updating its water pumps and refurbishing the 30,000-gallon metal tank, in addition to conducting water leak detections. Last year, the college purchased its first electric vehicle to curb the increase in gas prices. This fiscal year, the college is procuring 3 more vehicles to support our programs. And to top off our energy efficiency program, the college was awarded $475,200 from the U.S. Department of Interior to produce 100 kilowatts of power for the college. With the inclusion of this additional power, the college expects to see more cost savings in this area. Before this year is over, the college will have 7 Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, or LEED buildings, certified buildings. Let me boast again. It's quite impressive. I must give kudos to my Planning and Development Department and to our design team, TRMA. So how do we envision education post-COVID? Let me recognize that supporting the mental, social, and emotional health of all students and employees needs to be at the forefront of our discussion. Until we have addressed and provided support for all that seek assistance, we would not be successful. You have heard of the training opportunities that were coordinated with business partners to ensure employment through the GCC boot camps. The college conducted 16 boot camps for 345 students with an 85% pass rate in the past couple of years. We've learned from our early courses and made modifications along the way to ensure student success. With funding provided by the U.S. Department of Interior, we have offered tourism and hospitality and culinary and baking boot camps. We are on track to continue another 8 boot camps in the following areas: ship repair, construction, medical code and billing, cybersecurity, diesel mechanics, and childcare. Thanks to your support, the college gained national recognition of this innovative approach to help reshape our economy. But it was not just a one-time recognition. In fact, the conversations continue with other agencies and institutions for expansion into more industries. Let me provide an update to the various federal resources that the college has received. There are 3 major components: CARES, Student Aid Funds; CARES, Institution of Higher Education Relief Funds; and CARES, Minority Serving Institution Funds. The college has received student aid funds in the amount of $4,044,452 distributed to students in spring 2020, spring 2021, fall 2021, and spring 2022. In addition, we received an additional $6,198,541 and $2,776,342 in institutional and minority serving institution funds, respectively. This funding has been used to upgrade air conditioning systems, air purifiers, personal protective equipment and cleaning supplies, instructional equipment, certification for distance learning, laptops and MiFis, and most importantly, for counseling services for students and employees to support their emotional and mental well-being. Funding has been extended through June of 2023. The college is well on its ways to allocating all of these federal resources. We have several procurements in motion and plan to utilize all the funds that have been received to support the institution. Currently, the college has 3 employees that are funded using CARES funding: a licensed practical nurse, a school aide, and an administrative assistant for our materials management department. The college intends to absorb these positions into our regular budget when the federal funding expires in June 2023. This move will assist in our succession planning and help to ensure the continuity of the services of the college. The college recently completed its technology audit that consisted of the institutional technology strategic plan and the enterprise architecture. These documents will serve as a foundation to expand distance education instruction and student support. This assessment plays a critical role in determining our capacity and ensuring that we are able to support any further expansion. In addition to our technology strategic plans, the college will soon receive its updated facilities master plan. In terms of projects nearing completion, we have the Gregorio G. Plaza Crime Lab extension that supports the Guam Police Department's DNA and Serology Lab in addition to GCC classrooms, plus the completion of the renovated Building 300. Both buildings should be completed shortly, with construction at approximately 98% complete. While these 2 projects are nearing completion, the college has a couple more in the pipeline. We have recently awarded the renovation expansion of Building B, which will house student support services and our counseling department, along with the addition of a 2nd-floor open computer lab for our students. We are still fine-tuning the funding details for the GCC Facilities and Wellness Center. And finally, we anticipate the renovation of the Workforce Development Center to begin by the end of the year. In less than a month from now, on Friday, May 13th, 2022, the college will award 335 associate's and certificate degrees, high school diplomas, and journey worker certificates to 291 graduates. This morning, I closed my testimony supporting the Guam Community College's fiscal year 2023 budget request, ensuring you that our budget is deliberate, supports GCC's mission, and is in alignment with our institutional strategic master plan, and finally, is fiscally responsible. My deepest appreciation to all the faculty, staff, administrators, and most especially our students from the Guam Community College. With the unwavering support from the GCC Board of Trustees and the Foundation Board of Governors, Team GCC continues to be transformative, innovative, and guided by students first, mission always. Sejus Maasi for your continued support of our students and our mission.
Thank you, Dr. Okada. And thank you for all your accomplishments at GCC. I'm just going to leave it to my colleagues to ask questions they have. And we're also joined by Senator Jim Moylan and Senator Chris Duenas. Oversight, would you like to ask or you want to be last? It's up to you. Your call.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the GCC team for being here this morning. I think your closing said it all, Dr. Okada. The work that you're doing at the Guam Community College is something that we can all be proud of and truly transformative and innovative. We're very thankful for the leadership that you've had there at the college to bring our students into the workforce, to prepare a new workforce for the island and rising to meet the needs that we have that are changing with what the island is doing every single day. We've had our discussions about the budget, and I find it also to be very conservative. to really meet the needs of what you have as you continue to progress and grow. I'm very supportive of this budget, and I know the chair is as well. And so I look forward to providing that support for you as we go into the budget hearings. Thank you. The budget session, excuse me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. Senator Tello?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, and good morning to the GCC family. Thank you for all your hard work, especially during these difficult times in the pandemic. And it's very true. I mean, this is the one facility, educational facility that can retool our working force. We need to pull away from, tourism and start moving into different job descriptions that are outside of that rim. Nurses, technicians, and especially construction. So I appreciate all the hard work you're pulling toward that direction. I did notice that last, if I'm not mistaken, you're requesting for 2.17254 additional compared to last year's request, or what was received, authorized letter received.
1.2.
I'm sorry?
So we received for the current fiscal year $20,150,511, and our request is $21,333,285.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at this sheet here. I don't know if we have the same sheet. Okay, so the general fund, which is the one that I'm particularly looking at, you received in 2022 was $15,825,631. Is that correct?
No, ma'am.
And your request is for $17,932,885. And that's just from the general fund.
Our general fund appropriation for the current year is, yes, the $15,825,631, and the current request is $17,932,885.
But I have here the FY23 agency's request for $17,932,000. Is that what you're requesting?
Our request is
Is that correct, Mr. Chair?
$21,333,285, inclusive of all funds.
Yeah, see, this is different, yeah. Okay, they gave me the wrong one. In the meantime, while that's coming, and we'll discuss how much more, okay, here, I got it, okay. From the general fund only, if you can look at that, Mary, you got a copy of that sheet? Okay, from the general fund only, in FY22, you received $15,825,633, just from the general fund, correct? For 22.
That's correct.
Okay, and now your request, as the agency's request for 23, you're requesting $17,932,885, correct?
Just for that fund, correct.
Just for that particular fund. Okay, so all in all, there's it's hard with special funds, to go through, but including that, you're asking for a $1.2 million increase from last year.
That's
right?
correct, total funds.
1.2 million. Okay. Also in the OPA's report, if you, and as I was reviewing that, I noticed the section where it comes to the GCC Foundation. And there was an increase, considerable increase. It was 5 million compared to FY20's, this was 2021. Sorry, 2021. It looked like a net income of 5.1 million that you received. The foundation closed with that net amount, and then the net income of 1.1 million was what you received in 2020. So there's a huge increase. And it looks like GCC transferred the entirety of the 2.1 million to a timed certificate of deposit to the foundation to invest on behalf of GCC for capital projects. What's the other additional funding going to be used for?
So the foundation has investments in stocks and securities. And so last year, 2021, was a good year for our investments. And so the college recognized the significant income associated with those investments. The Guam Community College had a time certificate of deposit that is used for capital projects for the college, but was receiving a very, 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 very small percentage in terms of its interest. So instead of letting it sit in a TCD for a very for a very small percentage, we moved it as a restricted transfer to the foundation so that we can earn more money on our investment, but is completely controlled by the board for any future capital improvement projects on the GCC campus.
What is that amount?
The 2.1 that was transferred. The difference between the 2.1 and the 5 really is the earnings on the investments that they had for the year.
Okay, so in other words, you have received additional 2.1.
The foundation.
Right.
The foundation investments.
For capital improvements into GCC. The intention for this additional funding is for capital improvements, correct? That's what you said,
The
right?
2.1 million that the college already had in its community college time certificate of deposit is already earned. So it was transferred as a restricted contribution to the foundation so that it can be invested for a higher yield. So it's still restricted for CIP, but the intent was so that we can generate more income based on that investment instead of letting it sit in a TCD. Because they have a more robust investment strategy, so we wanted to maximize the yield on that investment.
There's still an additional 2 million, because it says here, let me read this to you. The foundation closed FY21 with an increase in net assets, net income of 5.1 million, compared to FY 2020's net income of 1 million. Net income during the primary consists of 2.4 million in net investment gains.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. So the investments for the foundation, their earnings for the year yielded 2 million plus, based on their investment and their investment strategies. And so the foundation is making good returns on its money because of their investment strategies. And so it's recognized in the foundation books, and it is reported as part of the GCC financial statements.
Okay, and it looks like that funding has been earmarked for some capital improvements down the line. That's the intent of this money, right, for capital improvements?
The money that we transferred, correct.
Okay. Has there been any raises other than what was authorized by increments at GCC, substantial raises?
So the college, for faculty and administrators that are under the purview of the board, had a salary study that was done or began in 2019. So in the current fiscal year, the Board of Trustees adopted the movement of all faculty and academic administrators that are under the purview of the board from the 10th market percentile to the 20th market percentile. So that has been effective for the current fiscal year. Keeping in mind that the last adjustment from the 10th percentile happened more than 11 years ago. So we moved from the 10th percentile to the 20th percentile based on 11-year, we didn't do a study for we didn't do any adjustments for the 11-year, moving the percentile until the current fiscal year. So it has already been incorporated and it is presented as part of this budget. The administrators has already been implemented, but in terms of the faculty, because the faculty performance evaluation is already ongoing for the current fiscal year, we will wait to slot the faculty until after the adjustment for this year has been slotted, and then they will be plotted into the 20th percentile. So yes, we have done some adjustments, and it was basically moving from the 10th percentile to the 20th percentile.
And what funds did you use to pay those adjustments?
The funding that we currently have for GCC under the general fund.
General fund money?
Correct.
Was used to increase that?
That's correct.
Was any of these positions or new positions out of ARP funding?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so no funding has been used to increase any salary, to hire new employees that are permanent, not the, I know you have part-time instructors, but I'm talking about those who are permanent and stuff with ARP funding.
No, ma'am.
But you have used the ARP funding to cover salaries for
So
part-time
We
or
have
temporary.
We had 3 positions, and then we did have one previous position, which was the instructional designer that we had on our federal funds, and that person has since resigned from the college, and we are actively recruiting for that position. But that position is currently sitting in the general fund.
Okay. How much non-appropriate funds did GCC receive so far to date, and it's anticipated to receive?
For the current year?
For the current year, non-appropriated funds.
So the current year.
And what are you planning on doing with that funding?
So the non-appropriated funds that we have for the current year is used to support and supplement the general fund operations in addition to capital projects, in addition to, so let me go back. In 2011, which was the last time the college did a tuition increase, in that tuition increase, the Board of Trustees allocated a certain percentage of the tuition increase at that time to be used to expand the number of full-time faculty and staff and administrators. So we do have a group of faculty, staff, and administrators that are supported by the non-appropriated funds. In addition, the tuition increase is earmarked, so the technology fees are used to support upgrades to technology in the class labs, keeping in mind that the college has about 1,500 computers, laptops, and equipment that support instructional learning. In addition to that, we have a set-aside amount for our capital that is also capital improvement, which is about it's about $800,000 per year that we use for CIP rolling forward, and that has traditionally been used to upgrade computers, to do just different things. Air conditioning units. We've used it for minor renovation projects, awnings. We've done some water pump repairs in the past. And so those are vetted through the campus community in terms of CIP projects that support the health and safety of students as a priority. And then if funding is available, support other CIP projects.
Dr. Cotta, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. And then any excess of the non-appropriated funds by board policy is what is used to support capital improvements at the college.
And how much did you receive in non-appropriated funds last year in 2021?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay, well, I'd like to see that number and how much of that
Absolutely.
has been expended.
Yes, ma'am.
If there's any leftover of those funds that you received in non-appropriated in FY21, what was it used on, and if there's any funding left over from it, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just one more question I think I have. How much ARP funding have you received at GCC, and are you anticipating any additional money? And I'm talking about the governor's ARP funding, not the grants within the COVID, not the grants, but the...
So there are 3 pots of money that we did receive from the governor's office. ESF1, which is the technology reimbursement of $134,000. And we were recently funded to support a literacy program of $1.2 million. And so we're currently recruiting for those positions, and we're working on having that literacy program activated by this summer. And then this additional ESF2 funding, $3.6 million is to be used for the recently awarded Building B project that I spoke about in my testimony.
You know, Dr. Okada, you know, I have the report here for the art funding and how much it's been spent. Under education, I don't see any funding being given to GCC. Maybe I'm
Not on
reading
the
this wrong.
ARP.
Yeah, so you received no money from ARP funding.
ESF we did, but not ARP.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have ESF. ESF 1 and ESF 2, we've received funding, but not ARP specifically.
Okay, no, I'm talking about the $580 million the governor has discretion
No,
over.
ma'am.
Okay, so you have received none. Are you anticipating to ask for any of that funding, the $580 million that the governor has? Or actually, what's sitting there is about $323 million is sitting there that hasn't been
Not at
expended,
this
I
point.
think, yeah. Let me see.
Not at this time.
Do you have any more questions, Senator Tello? We can move along.
Pretty much. That's so you have not received anything on that. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We'll look forward to some of those questions that I've asked that you weren't able to get those numbers, especially what we received in 2021. And appreciate it. Thank you so much, Dr. Okada, and
Thank you.
all the hard work GCC has been doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tello. Senator Joanne Brown, do you have any questions for the panel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly appreciate the information that's been provided, but I do have to note, and you know, overall, I think we've all seen how well Guam Community College has done, and certainly every year how you've succeeded in having clean audits for the college, so I don't have much to say with regards to that because I think you're doing very well. One of the things I'm concerned about, and you had mentioned that these salary increases were recently put in place, and I understand it takes a number of years sometimes to get the studies and get the salary adjustment amounts and position description and things of that nature, as I have some familiarity with that. But I'm seeing a trend here at a time when our economy, and certainly I think we recognize this pandemic has been a substantial, even though the circumstances under which we are receiving these funds are incredibly unfortunate. We continue to see the trend of government agencies increasing salaries at a time when our own economy, I think we can gauge Dr. Okada, more than likely, if we did not have this federal money at this time, would not be able to support the current operations of government. And I know for you, certainly your responsibility in your jurisdiction is the Guam Community College, not the entire government of Guam. But for us up here, our responsibility is the entire government of Guam. And I'm a little dumbfounded that becomes a priority at a time when we are in a situation where a significant portion of our economy and a substantial number of our people that were working and support businesses for that economy are unemployed still. And so I want to note that, and to you, the chairman of the board, Mr. Arreola, to be aware of that. I understand internally within operating your, Guam Community College that, you're looking at what you see as a priority and the need within the Guam Community College. But at your level, there's a higher expectation, as with us, that we sometimes have to look at the big picture. And I'm a little concerned because we just started this past week with the chairman here, these budget hearings for this fiscal year. And aside from what I hear in the media where the governor has herself gone and put in place salary increases using federal funds, and while it doesn't apply to the college, certainly we've had hiring on federal money that has a time life on it and is not going to be available next year or the year after, the year after. So I'm just saying be mindful of that because while GCC is not in as much duress as the rest of our community, I think we need to also set the example. The timing is terrible, in my view, of dealing with these pay raises. I mean, who doesn't want to get a pay raise? I mean, the legislature more than likely will not see one ever. If it does, it'll be under tremendous duress in the community because I've been here long enough to know that the public certainly will never want to see a pay raise of the Guam legislature. But the timing of these pay raises is just the wrong time. It doesn't set the example because right now the money's here. The monies may not be here a year, 2 or 3 from now, and you have to anticipate how you may have to restructure your operations to accommodate that. I have no objections. People want raises. Who doesn't want a pay raise, especially if you've been working for many years? And you, as you mentioned, it's been 10 years since the last study was put in place and the last pay raise was put in place. But to do it now while we live in a very artificial economy, that we know has a time life, it has a shelf life, and when it expires, it's going to come home to roost. And the people that have put all this expenditure in place, more than likely in this government, may not be here to suffer the consequences. But if those of us or those that will continue on in the legislature that are going to have to cut into the flesh of the government of Guam to keep this government afloat, and I've been there, been around long enough to know what that's like. It is very painful. There's some new ones here that have no idea. I have colleagues here that all they want to do is spend, 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 and have no idea what it is to try and manage this government when the money's not flowing. So I just want you to be mindful, Mr. Chairman, your board, and certainly I know Dr. Okada, at least after, this is my sentiment, as I'm sure it's shared by a number of my colleagues that are a little more conservative in how we budget. The timing of these type of pay raises, it's just not the best time. I mean, you've already put it in place. I don't know how you undo it. But the timing, to be disconnected from the realities of what's happening in our community, especially when I fear that. I fear when this money, subsides and it's not available. I don't know how we're going to manage collectively to keep this government afloat with the growing demands, because this government has grown during this pandemic. It's coming out of this process bigger and more expensive than when we started. And that's not what we should be during these challenging times. I mean, it's when you get lean and you get a little more, put a little more effort, a little more muscle grease, and you survive on less. At least that's been my experience of how we've gotten through this. So I have no questions with regards to the continued work of the Guam Community College. You've definitely rose to the occasion, particularly with regards to the training programs that are available to help also the very people I'm talking about in our community that have lost their jobs, to retrain them, retool them to be prepared for other professions. So there's no question you guys have done exceptional. I'm just saying the timing of these pay raises is where the concern is, because right now, while people are dancing in the streets thinking that, it's wonderful, we got all this money, we're hiring, we're paying people more money, it just is not in line with the realities of really where we are. Go down to Tumon every day. More people you see out there walking and exercising, which I think is wonderful too. But the overall industry is at a standstill. And aside from military expenditure, that is our next major income. And it's the cobwebs are growing down there. And I think we just need to be mindful of that. And once we get through it, then fine. We're going through good times and, we don't have any major crisis, then wonderful. But to continue to grow this government with our inability of knowing that we can sustain it, that we can continue to provide the funding, that's the concern. I don't want to be here a few years from now having to cut a budget for GCC because we can't reach other obligations in the government. So I'm just saying, please be mindful of that. With that, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Ada, do you have any comments or any questions for the panel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to thank the Chair, Mr. Arreola, and Madam President. Thank you for coming down for your budget presentation. Over the years, I've never had an issue with GCC. You've always been at the forefront of what we can do for our community and in the sense of education, higher education. I've seen that college tremendously improved over the many years that you've been the head of the college, and I truly appreciate that. Your testimony here on what you've been doing with the federal funds is outstanding. I mean, especially when you consider about updating equipment, updating services to the school, increasing the capabilities and capacity of the community college. But most importantly, and I think you said it really well here, is the counseling services for students and the employees. And so far, this is just the second budget hearing that we've had from UOG and now you, that counseling for the students and employees has been mentioned. And I hope that this becomes a trend with the other agencies, that they're going to be providing counseling for their employees and whoever needs it, because this pandemic is something that no one ever expected. But I think when we recognize what we can do for our community, what we can do for our employees to make their lives better, and ensuring that when we have a productive workforce, then we can have an efficient government. Mm-hmm. But if we don't have a productive workforce because people think they need to still stay home because psychologically they're saying, well, I'm not safe out there, and that's what we need to do, is we need to continue to let people know that yes, they are safe. Yes, we are doing what we can to protect the community and protect our employees. So thank you for everything, Madam President, that you continue to do at at the college and to the board and to all the employees up there at GCC. I mean, we've seen that college go from probably the buildings that have been almost condemned to the most what do you call it? I mean, it's word, you can't even put it in words because it's just been so advanced in how you've taken that college. So thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I don't have no questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator Ada. I'd like to also recognize Senator Paris, who joined us also this morning. Senator Moylan, do you have any question for the panel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and continue on to my colleague to my right here. Yes, I heard your presentation, Madam President, and your planning and development department have done wonderful. I really enjoyed that campus, and especially your investments into now the CIP programs. If you made it that amount of money, I can imagine how it goes forward. So congratulations on that. I do have a small budget question and something we talked about a few years past before the pandemic with DOE there. And I like the different track programs that you developed, and we had that discussion about our need to help kids interested in peace officer and that track program. So I'm wondering on the budget side, is this something that you need to incorporate? And maybe you can remind us on, I think we have one track program for that purpose, and if it went well or not, or is that something to continue? Because, of course, we need the peace officers, new recruits, and from what we understand, we can get these folks interested, but there's difficulty in passing the post requirement, right? The math and the English, and then plus the physical, and for the different peace officer requirements, whether it be DOC, Customs, GPD. So I know you had the conversation with Juan Fernandez, right? John Fernandez there. And if that's something that will be continuing, because I found it to be very helpful and that folks were interested in that as I understood. So that's one question, and then I'll have one other after that, please.
So we did have a criminal justice course that was offered last summer, and that went really well. And we are offering that course again this summer. It doesn't have any budget implications in our general fund or other special funds because it is funded through the consolidated grant under Department of Education. So there's a provision in that grant funding that allows us to test new programs so that when we get, so it's kind of like a pilot program for us before we establish a full-on program. So we're generating the interest so that once we generate the interest and we're able to sustain it, then it will be piloted as a further piloted into the consolidated grant before it stands up as its own program. So we are offering another course this summer to help generate the additional information that we need to further expand that into a regular program for GDOE students.
Excellent, thank you. I can see the progress and then the study, and then it will be hopefully a permanent program depending on the interest in how this goes.
Yes, sir.
So very nice. The other question is regarding the GCC was very helpful with the post commission, right? And I think you had a volunteer position for the post commission regarding the pay scale adjustments for peace officers, right? There was a study going on there, or basically you assisted the post commission in secretarial or office work, right? Because we have all these post agencies working there, but nobody can really put all this together. Would this be continuing, and was that budgeted for this?
So in the current fiscal year budget, there is a line item appropriation to support the program specialist for this post-commission. And we provide the administrative support. There is some discussion that because that position compensation is really low, I don't have any unclassified positions except myself and my secretary. And so we didn't want to come and ask for another unclassified position, so we will simply use the funding that we currently have to augment what is necessary for a post-executive director to be hired, and then we will augment that funding that we currently have until such time that they're able to stand on their own. And we'll continue to offer the administrative support until they get that structure built.
Thank you for that, because
Yes.
GCC's role is really important. Overall, we're just looking at further recruits, folks coming out of GCC ready to get into the peace officer group so we can fill these positions. So
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Moreland. Senator Duenas, do you have any questions for the panel?
Sidus Mazi, Mr. Chair, and certainly President Okada and Mr. Areola and your team, you've done some really excellent work. Congratulations on your 21-year clean audit. I think between you and Guam Housing Corporation, which I enjoyed being a part of, I think consecutively, probably have the two highest in terms of, audits, in terms of clean audits and no deficiencies. Yesterday, and I know President Okada, first of all, I want to also congratulate you on your 16 boot camps and your 85% graduation rate. That's a testament to what we're doing to getting our workforce moving, and good job on that. Yesterday, we had Department of Education here requesting consideration on, the issue with regard to service learning, as well as the law for the 180 days or hours associated with every child is entitled to an adequate education. And one of the things I discussed with them was, and you are a board member, congratulations once again, elected board member, Madam President. But one of the things I discussed yesterday was the issue that it really is the juniors and the seniors predominantly that are going to be affected the most by the issue of learning loss. And of course, obviously their time, right? They're graduating out of, and going into post-secondary. One of the things I discussed yesterday was, is there any collaboration now between Department of Education and GCC and UOG, of course, as well, as that when these students may be articulating to your education institution, to perhaps maybe for the first semester defray any penalties against them for remediation or classes that they may need to take, in order to be able to kind of give them that catch-up time also at GCC and at the university level, so that normally, of course, they would take those courses and not get credit for it, right? But they would have to pay for it. And I'd just like to see if there's anything that you can consider building into that, or do you think that's something that would be logical?
So, Senator, based on the innovation that GCC has, we've provided free developmental courses for English and math for the past couple of years. We provided it last summer, we provided it in December, and we have it scheduled already to be provided this summer, just to give them an edge up, because they may have, some learning recovery to do. So we've offered the courses using our federal funds as a transition into post-secondary education so that they are successful and not having to pay for those developmental courses. So we have it already in the pipeline. We've done it this past year and a half, and it is furthering into this summer.
Excellent. And I think that, this hearing, as well as I'm sure you'll promote it, that's got to be really welcome news to parents. I'm sure everybody's struggling, and, there will be these issues of trying to, get that education while working as well, and having that program available is wonderful. We'll reach back to the university again. I wasn't able to attend their hearing, but I'm sure that they'll do something similar. I noticed, President Okada, that there is the discussion on the almost completion on the Gregorio G. Plaza crime lab. Obviously, there's been quite a bit in the news lately about the issue of DNA and the capability of that program. 2 years, just unacceptable in terms of what took place with a particularly heinous crime. Not dwelling on that, though, wonderful that it's just about complete. How is the staffing, supplies, and the ability to stand it up once the construction and occupancy is done?
So GCC issued the bid for all the equipment and supplies necessary for it to be operational. That bid has already been awarded, and so we're just waiting for it to come in. In terms of the staffing, that really is on the GPD side. But we did take the administrative route to procure as the procuring agency, as we did when the original crime lab was built. GCC was the procurement agency to procure the equipment for the original crime lab. We've instituted the same thing for this expansion, and the bid has already been awarded several months. We're just waiting for the equipment now to arrive.
That's good news, and I think our public will be, enlightened again today as a result of this hearing knowing that help is on the way when it comes to really that excellent forensic capability to be able to solve crimes and deter crimes. I think when people out there know that, we have a very robust capability of forensics, even just that in the back of people's mind that may have a propensity towards criminal behavior, it's like, I know I'm not going to get away with that now if I leave something behind. So that's really good news. And I guess I would just close by saying I do echo some of the comments, and I hope that this will be taken in consideration, that, if any institution to me that comes before us, particularly with seeing, the continuation, we don't know how long it will go for, but the continuation of revenues being above adopted levels. Education is the investment, just in my opinion. However, I think it is important that we continue to use as much. You declare, and I do believe it is fiscally responsible here, as you pronounced. I just think it's really always good to take in consideration, compensation and others, to maybe defer some of that just to see where we're at going forward. And I would encourage you to do that as much as possible. We're all pulling together and trying to get there. But most definitely, I cannot say enough about how much your role and your continued role in the work you're doing to prepare our workforce, because that's jobs and opportunities. We can have all the federal program for public assistance, that we can, but nothing replaces the dignity of work and the ability to provide for your family. So thank you for all you continue to do. Mr. Chairman, Cesar Masi, for that opportunity to ask some questions.
Thank you, Senator Ennis. Senator Parrish, do you have any questions for the panel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to Dr. Cotta and everybody on the panel today. I think, in listening to the testimony that was given this morning, what comes to mind is how effective GCC uses their funds, and the impact it has the positive impact it has in our community. And it has been, very, I've been very appreciative of the partnership that GCC has throughout the educational community from DOE, and I think that's really critical. That's something that I've pushed for, is the pre-apprenticeship programs within the schools as a pipeline to, livelihoods, basically. And I'm pretty glad that, we share that vision. So if you can perhaps, talk about the investment that GCC does at the high school level with the funding that you have.
So the general fund supports all the faculty and that is in the 6 public high schools. I believe we have 45 faculty instructors and counselors that support the GDOE students. Let me just pull out some data. I would say on the average, we have about 2,600 students that are in the public high schools taking 13 different GCC programs. And so much of the operational dollars really comes from the consolidated grant that includes the career and technical education funding that has also been consolidated. So in terms of the supplies for the ProStart programs, the marketing programs, many of that funding comes from the consolidated grant that is managed by Guam Department of Education. And we receive that money on an annual basis from GDOE through a contractual agreement. So, like I said, if we are to pilot or to expand any additional program, the only impact it would have to the GCC budget is if we are to add additional faculty to support them. We always pilot any program starting with the consolidated funds, including the faculty salaries, at least for the first 2 years before it's transferred to the general fund. And so, like I said, we do support the GDOE public schools in terms of the career and technical education courses that are provided to them.
Thank you for that. And would you be able to share the amount that is part of the consolidated grant that goes to fund all these programs?
Yeah, we get about $1 million, maybe 1.2 million, I believe, per year.
Okay. And is there any plans to expand the offerings in the schools, in the high schools?
Yes, ma'am. There is an option under the consolidated grant that we could begin to offer exploratory courses. So for example, and we've done some, I guess, reprogramming. So for example, we couldn't get an instructor for construction down at Southern High. So instead of doing construction at Southern High, we converted that position to now start offering HVAC. So that's an opportunity for us to, one, garner student interest for further expansion, but the HVAC is not a full-on program, it's only a segmented program. So we do have opportunities to expand career and technical education in the high schools based on exploratory courses that may be of interest to students, and then eventually offering a full-on program in the out years.
That's wonderful. And what is the lead time? So you said 2 years is perhaps, or what's the lead time if you want to add new courses? Maybe perhaps it's related to the grant funding.
So if we put it in our application for the subsequent year, we'll do a pilot, and then 2 years after that pilot is when we'll start to incorporate it, because you have to wean off the federal funds at some point. You can't keep them on the, especially personnel, you can't keep them on those federal funds for a long time. It has to eventually become sustainable through our appropriations. So we put it in our application that, of course, is going to be a year prior, and then 2 years if we are to launch a program, and then eventually after the third year to incorporate it into our budget request.
And what is the cost you estimate for a new program?
In terms of faculty, it's about, I would say about $45,000 for a course, for a program.
For a program?
Yeah.
In one school?
In one school, yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. In your budget, do you have any vacant positions?
Yes, we currently do.
Okay, and I think just for the sake of, I guess, workforce development, can you maybe list what those positions are?
So we do have a couple positions in maintenance that we are currently or actively recruiting. It's been very difficult to hire maintenance positions because the pay is really low. Maintenance is one. We also have some faculty positions that are on limited term that we're now going to be converting those into permanent full-time faculty to support both secondary and post-secondary programs. In our staffing pattern, I believe at the time we had a financial aid administrator, and we have actively recruited for that, and that should be filled in the next couple of months. I'm just pending or working on an offer right now. So refrigeration mechanic. The buyer one that is in here has already been filled. It's minimal in terms of ours, but most of them are faculty positions that we're currently recruiting now for the next academic year. So they'll be in place by August. And if we can't find a permanent employee, because recruitment has been kind of slow, we've not yet been getting some applications, we've had to extend the announcements, then we will just fill it with a limited term for the academic year.
Okay, thank you. And I was listening to the testimony regarding how you were able to fund capital improvement projects. I think that's pretty ingenious. I think, with a lot of the issues with our schools and, looking, that's usually the last thing that gets funded, right? The first thing is the salaries and the positions, the operations, utilities. Those are the first things that get funded, and capital improvement usually goes by the wayside. So I do appreciate your proactive approach in that.
Thank you.
And so is that sufficient? Do you think the amount of money that you're generating, is that sufficient to keep up with your capital improvement projects?
So far it has. We've been, like I said, we've been able to get some funding. We do have a pending application to the U.S. Economic Development Authority. We're in the final stretch in that application, and once that's funded, then it will pay for the renovation of the Workforce Development Center. So we are continuously applying for federal grants to support that. I would say, given the infusion of federal funds that we currently have, although there are some restrictions associated with that for higher education in terms of construction, it currently is deemed to be sufficient to support the operations of the college.
And then I guess one final question. So how much additional funding for healthcare insurance do you need for FY22 that wasn't anticipated in your FY22 budget, if that's the case?
So in FY22, I believe it was 200,000, but based on the appropriation we got, and we're able to cover that with the appropriation already. We anticipate that the health insurance is going to continue to go up given the current situation. And so based on the budget that we've been given, we're able to allocate and secure all the, of course, personal services and benefits first. And then we fund, and remember that many of the many of the equipment has already been moved into, to the extent possible, into the federal funds, which is why you don't see a large capital investment in terms of capital outlay and some of the services as well. So, so far we've been able to absorb it with the personnel lapses.
Okay. And how much was that?
About 200,000 for the current fiscal year.
200,000 additional than what was appropriated?
Yeah, because we're appropriated in lump sum, and the additional cost was about 200,000. So we just made sure that all of that is covered first before we allocate to the non-personnel items.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your responses, and thank you for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Okada. And Mr. Leon Guerrero, you're the Vice President of the Board of Trustees, correct? Or
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair, the Board of, Board of Trustees. Well, number one, in closing, I just want to first commend Guam Community College and the Board of Trustees for their support. And I like your statement, Dr. Okada, with, was it on your continuation of transformative, innovative, and guided by student first, mission always. Great closing. And with that, this committee will conclude this budget hearing on the Guam Community College. And again, I commend you for your 21 years of audit-free, clean audit. We will continue to receive testimonies. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriation, and Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. San Agustin at gmail.com or to my office located at Rand Care Building, 2nd floor, Suite 3, 761 South Marine Corps Drive, Tamuning, Guam. Zeus Masi for your attendance and participation today. And for those at home, thank you for watching. The budget hearing on Bill 276-36CR relative to the Guam Community College is now adjourned. It is now 10:08. Please be safe. Take care.